Welcome to Comics in the Making. My name is Ryan Holgerson. I'm the creator of Slackmatic, and I'm joined, as always, by Levi Erickson, the creator of The Big. Levi, I can't believe we're wearing the same thing we did last week. This is ridiculous.
I know. I mean, the laundry day cycle just fell, just the the great the Downey Great Conjunction.
I know. It's so weird. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's like stepping back in
that,
time, honestly. I feel like it's the weekend of the 7th or 8th or whatever it was when we shot that last video.
it's so weird.
It's even
That,
weirder if this video comes out before that one.
yeah, I
It's just gonna make this whole
know.
conversation multiverse.
Well, I just locked it in. This has to come out after the last video.
Okay.
So, but yeah, but that was my favorite ad lib from a SNL sketch, where David Spade did that, with the Gap Girls. Amazing. Anyway, Levi, today we are talking about something, and you know what? So we're gonna talk about working for exposure. And on the heels of our video, about our 1 year anniversary doing this show, this is a subject that I think has been on our docket, uh, since we pretty much started it. We when we started this show, we were kind of always sending each other, "Hey, what should we do? Should we do?" I remember I had a notebook with a bunch of notes and everything. And to be fair, we kind of rarely go back to those, um, because we usually either we're riffing on something that's happened in the news, in comics, or whatever, something that's in the zeitgeist. And so we haven't always gone back to those early ideas for shows. Um, but we are to that point today. A year in, we are going to finally talk about working, for exposure. And we just did a video, a few weeks ago on commissions and why we don't do commissions. And I think there might be, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of parallels, between this, but I do think this is, going to be another one of those episodes on how, artists can get taken advantage of.
No, yeah,
So
100%. And I think there'll be I think there'll be some good amount of overlap with the commission things that we discussed before because some of those, depending on how you define these terms, can sort of fall into the same bucket. So yeah, let's roll
yeah,
into it.
well, I'll start it off by asking you, Levi. Levi, have you ever worked for exposure? And you know what? Let's define this real
Yeah,
fast
yeah.
before you get into that. So working for exposure. So exposure is, this this concept that, I think, people that are trying to get artists, they like to throw at them. Hey, I can't pay you a page rate, but when this comes out, oh man, the exposure you're gonna get it's gonna pay for itself with the exposure. I don't have any money. I'm not gonna give you any cut of the profits or anything, but the exposure you're gonna get from doing this work, oh, it's just gonna be it's gonna be unbelievable the amount of money you're gonna make from the exposure from this. So that's what we're talking about. So Levi, now I'll come back. Levi, have you ever worked for exposure?
I am trying to think because I want to answer this honestly and completely. No, in comics, I have not worked for exposure. It goes back
Okay.
it goes back to the whole thing. We've had people approach comics in the making and with vision, other creators and like, hey, it'd be really cool if you became some kind of did some kind of like Image Comics-esque sort of cohort of creators under the umbrella, yada yada yada. And my response to that is like that's a cool idea. I'm glad you're enthusiastic about, comics in the making and what it can kind of morph into. But the age-old question is, can I do anything for you that you can't already do for yourself right now? The answer is no. So, in terms of on that sense, yeah, there's no exposure to be had in terms of um using comics in the making being something of that vehicle. I'm thinking back to work I've done, and I've negotiated some sort of compensation for everything that I can remember. I've done things for people as a favor, you know. I contributed to the Sunday Jam comic. That wasn't for exposure. That was because, hey, you want to do something? Fine. That sounds like fun. I'll do it. So that's
Yeah, and I
that's
think
different. I know exactly what you mean by
yeah, and I
people
think we
coming
can
at you.
right, and I think we can kind of come back at the end maybe and talk about the exceptions to the rule
Yeah.
of working for exposure. So for me personally, I have 100% worked for exposure. Um, but all of that happened when I first started putting my comics out there and self-publishing when I was 17, 18 years old. And when you're that age and you just want to get your stuff out there, you want to do anything to get your work out there, and you start getting any little nibble of, hey, would you do this? Would you do that? You're you jump at it because you're like, oh, this might be the next, this could be the next thing. And you and I'm not saying this is everybody, but I do think this generally happens more with younger artists. And so your knee-jerk reaction a lot of times is to just say yes to everything. And I think that's where, for me, this goes back to the commissions, where
Yeah.
uh I had to find what was the joy in creating art, creating comics and stuff like that. And I don't think you come to this immediately. This is something you kind of have to grow towards to see the bigger picture and where do you get your joy and stuff like that. Uh so but so I can't think of and I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but I have definitely done work for free where the uh the quote unquote payment was, think of the exposure. And I can tell you from experience, from doing work, uh I'm not going to say it was super high profile, but it definitely got in front of a lot of eyeballs. Um that it never works. It just never works.
Yeah.
Um do I regret it? Not really, because that's where I've come to today. But I just want to tell the people out there, if you're getting an email or someone's coming to you and they're like, look, there's no payment for this, but think of the exposure. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no amount of exposure that's going to be worth it. It's just, and you can go, oh, Ryan, I bet you it really wasn't that much exposure and stuff like that. No, I can guarantee you, I did stuff that got eyeballs. I never got one fucking email about the stuff I did. Okay, because in general, let's face facts. When we're talking about that, the wider public's not necessarily going to go and seek out whatever it was, um if your name's on it, hopefully, sure it is, but even like let's say you're doing something for a big anthology. Oh, it's going to be so great. It's going to have all this exposure. And then your contact information is probably going to be in the back of that book. It's
Yep.
going to be this little blurb with an author's note or whatever. Um, Not everybody's going to go in the back and look at that. Um, I've done covers for certain publications and posters and all sorts of stuff like that. Uh, and again, my contact information ends up being this little tiny blurb and stuff like that. I I cannot think of a time where true exposure helped me. And I could be wrong. I don't know. But and to be honest, anytime uh sort of exposure has helped me has been stuff where I'm exposing myself. So those would be instances like when I was doing concert posters for my band.
Hmm.
So I'm not paying myself, I'm doing the artwork for that stuff. And that's gotten out into the community. And then maybe someone sees my band and then they see that I'm doing the artwork for that band. And then I've ended up doing artwork for other bands and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I was more committed to that exposure because it was me. No one, and I think that's going to be one of the kind of underlying themes for this. No one is going to care as much about your work as you. Um, so when someone's coming to you and wanting you to work for exposure, um, eh, let's just face the facts. They just don't want to pay you. They don't want to pay you.
100%.
Uh, and there's no imagine you're working at a fast food restaurant and the manager at McDonald's goes, "Oh, hey, we're going to have you run the drive-through, and we're not going to pay you an hourly rate, but think of all the eyeballs that are going to get in front of you at the drive-through as they're coming. Every guy, when they come through and they just want to pay for their cheeseburger, you can tell them a joke and kind of get out in front of them." And I mean, that's just gonna, oh my God, it's just gonna do wonders for your career. And just imagine if Steven Spielberg happens to go through the drive-through at this McDonald's. What is that going to do to your
Yeah.
career?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Because
that's that's the bullshit that people that are wanting to pay you for exposure are peddling.
right.
And you know what? I just came up with that analogy right here, and I'm super proud of that, and I'm going to use that in the future.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
And we can also tag Steven Spielberg in this video now.
right, and that was the goal. That was the goal.
Jurassic
Um,
Park, Jaws, you can do it all.
yeah. Uh, isn't it crazy that he directed Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same year? Um, anyway, uh, so
That's why I
but
can't tell those
that
movies apart.
I know they're so similar. I mean, it's like, yeah.
Oh,
Um, yeah. Hey,
what a
you
hack.
took it. Yeah, I know. Hey, guy. Um, but that is what people are peddling when they're trying to get you to work for exposure.
Hell yeah.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that when people are coming to you for exposure, they're probably people that you don't know at all. Um, they're kind of just shooting in the dark. Will you
They
will
don't
you do this?
they don't respect you or your work.
No, no, and so all this comes down to, in my opinion, is we need to have a higher um worth
Yeah.
for our work. All of
Yeah.
you out there, what you are doing, we talk about this sometimes with our time lapse videos. Um, I'll put a time lapse video out of me doing digital inking and stuff like that. And there's times where I'll get thousands of views and all these likes, and people are just like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And I'm always, uh, you know, no false modesty. I'm always kind of taken aback, like, man, I'm just drawing. Uh, but what we do is a magic trick to the vast majority of people. Most people do not create. Most people do not draw.
Yeah.
Uh, most people do not write. So when they see somebody doing that, it's like a magic trick to them. And we need to embrace that and understand that no, these are skills that we learned over, the course of decades. For some of us, I've been honing my craft for 28, 30 years since I was a child, and that worth means something. I would not to go back to the commissions and stuff like that, but when we talk about pricing for freelancers, freelance work for commissions, or page rates, whatever, uh, the time we put in to learning this stuff should go into that pricing.
Yeah.
Um, it might take you an hour to do a page. Um, but that doesn't mean you charge an hourly rate of, $30 an hour or whatever for that page, because it took 30 years
Yeah.
to get to that point that
It's
you
like
could
the,
do that.
it's like the old thing where, your appliance breaks down, you bring in a technician to fix it. They fix it in 15 minutes and here's your bill. It's $200, whatever. And the person's like outraged. It took you only 50 minutes. How can you charge me 200? It's like, you're not paying for the 15 minutes. You're paying for the 15 years it took me to get to where I could do it for you in 15 minutes, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And I think the problem is, when it comes to the arts, uh people that are doing that are just, first of all, that all comes, doing something like that. And I'm not trying to discredit the plumber that's doing plumbing. He might love plumbing. It might be an art to him. I don't know. But in most cases, for the arts, people are they're just a little more desperate for that attention. And they grew up drawing, they grew up wanting to do this, and so any little morsel of attention is just, oh, they grab onto it and stuff like that. And that's why we see so many people in the arts get taken advantage of. um and so I want people to have a self-worth in yourself, and be brave enough to ask for uh for that page rate.
yeah,
Are you worth a $200 page rate or whatever? Then ask for it. If they really want you that much, then they're gonna pay it. Or maybe they come back and they negotiate, and you can get to a place where you're okay with it. Um, something I advocate with some other friends of mine, who are artists, but not necessarily in the comics industry and stuff like that. Um, there is a great power in saying no.
hmm
And I don't think we talk about that a lot. People always, I, I'm always a little taken aback when I hear artists and musicians and stuff, and they say we always say yes. I always say yes. I always say yes. And I get it. I get it. You're always trying to find that opportunity and stuff like that. But I also think there's great power in saying no.
yeah,
And if the deal isn't right, um, you should be able to say no and walk away from it.
100%.
Yeah. So so let's circle back around where you were talking about, doing something for the Sunday Jam. I've done something for the Sunday Jam.
Yep.
So I I do think it's important. Let's not, you know, doing something for exposure and then doing something for a friend or doing something with a
Right.
group. I think there's a big there's a big
Different
difference
things.
for that,
100%. Two
Yeah.
different things. And
I did.
I don't consider the Sunday Jam, in the bucket of exposure. It was never presented to me. It was never sold to me. Hey, this would be great for your career. It was just, hey, we do this. come to the group.
Yeah.
It'll be fun, and we're gonna print these things, and you're gonna get a copy.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
yeah, I'll do that. That's totally great. It's
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
No, I no, yeah, no, something like that's all for fun. I did a 6-page story for Spitballs, which is an anthology that came out in January. They kickstarted it. Everybody involved with that, which Jason, who does Sunday Jam, he was involved in that. Joseph Morris, Terry Flippo, they were doing this anthology. They asked me if I would, do a a 6-page story. These are guys I've known for a really long time, and it was like, yeah, no, sure.
Yeah,
That sounds fun. I happen to have something in mind that I could whip out. And that was for look, they're all in the same boat I am, and also, not one of them when they emailed me were like, uh oh, you go. This is it, kid. Come on in. This is your ticket. It was just, hey, we're doing this. We're doing this anthology, and this is going to be fun. I think there's a big difference
yeah,
there. And I had no, I there was no qualms about it. I was like, yeah, no, I'm going to do it. And also, in all fairness, they've asked me to contribute some other stories when they were doing it, and I was like, sorry guys, I just don't, I'm doing this right now.
yeah,
um so again, the power of saying no. And that wasn't because I didn't like it or I don't like them. I had nothing to do with that. It was just, I don't have the time. I don't want to slow you guys down. um and I'm kind of focused on this other stuff. um but I think a lot of this too, it comes from that fear of missing out sometimes. I think a lot of that about art, in like conventions, like if
yeah,
you miss a comic convention that everybody else is going to, and you're like, oh, I probably would have made $1,000 at that show if I had just been there.
right.
um that same thing with this when we're talking about exposure. Oh, I said no, but now it's like a biggest hit seller, and stuff like that. And I should have jumped on it. Look, could that happen? Yeah, it could, but probably not. Honestly, probably not. We're talking about a percentage of a percentage uh,
Right.
of that happening. And you know what? If it happened, hey, it happened. Move on. Move on. That's all of this, what we're doing, just life, drawing, creating. It's those moments that make us better. um learn from your mistakes. uh, Mistakes are good. I can tell you from a career in management, uh that was something I would tell people all the time when they made a mistake. No, mistakes are good.
Right.
You make a mistake, now you know what the outcome is. Now the trick is, let's not make that mistake again.
Yeah. No,
How do
you
we
how to
move
not
forward
do
with that?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I I feel like a lot of people who are looking for the type of opportunity that they hope exposure will bring them aren't like being honest with themselves, or at least don't have the experience to understand that very rarely do those opportunities happen, because your phone rings, you get a notification in your inbox, and it says, "Hey, I'm so and so from whatever, and we saw your contribution to this project, and we think you're the perfect yada yada yada." Emails that I get that have shit like that, report as spam, throw in the trash, because they
Hmm.
almost always are scams. Um, those opportunities come because you are on the hunt for them. And sadly, to say, I mean, it's not my personality to like, kind of like elbow my way to the front of the line and say, "Hey, look at me. Look what I can do." But a lot of those opportunities go to people who do that. They've put the work in. They've focused on their goal. They've analyzed where they need to go to get that, and they freaking get there. They go there, right? Um,
Yeah.
and and if you're sitting back passively, if that's what you want, the opportunities that exposure promises, if that's what you want, you're kind of waiting for something to fall in your lap. Now, so I'm trying to like we talked about
Well,
trying to define terms for a second
well,
there.
well, yeah, no. Well, let me talk about falling in your lap.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna be 100% honest. Almost every freelance job I've ever done has fallen in my lap. I do not
Well, my
look
whole fucking thing's
for yeah, no. I don't I don't I think I've got a point. I don't go out looking for freelance work. I don't like it. I same as commissions. It's not something I look for. So almost everything that I've done has fallen in my lap. Now, this year, we've talked about it before and stuff like that. This year, I've made a huge concerted effort to get my work out there. But the thing is, all of that has been through telling my stories on a regular basis, getting it out there as often as possible. Doing time lapse videos, doing videos with you, and then coming out with these 6 to 10 page stories,
They call that
doing
pounding
that.
the pavement, right?
Yeah, sure.
The
well
generation
and
before us called that putting in the work.
yeah, and I really agree. I'll tell you, this thinking has come from uh I like the aspect of getting so good that they can't ignore you. And in this day and age of algorithms where we get upset about no one's seeing my stuff, I'm screaming into the void and stuff like that. I have put a lot of effort into doing these stories on a semi-regular basis. I've slowed down a little bit, and I'll be honest, part of the reason I've slowed down is because I'll look at it and go, well, is this good enough? I don't know if this is good enough, and I'll go back and I'll do rewrites and stuff like that. I want to get to a point, and I'm not saying I'm there because I'm not, but I want to get to a point in my craft where I'm so good you can't ignore me anymore. And by doing that, we talked about, I think I've talked about this a few episodes ago. I have something happen every week with my comics now.
Mhm.
I'm not saying it's huge, but I have gotten to the point where at least either once a week I get order in my Etsy store. I get a nice comment. I either have a story do really well. Something happens every week. I got there because I put a lot of work into my stuff this year.
Yep.
And that's, guys, there's no easy answer. There's no magic hashtag. There's no
Right.
one social media source. It's all hard work. And let me tell you
It,
something,
dude. That is
it
it.
doesn't, yeah, and it doesn't, here's the thing, it doesn't always work. I've had stories this year that have just totally flopped. And you know what? I picked myself back up and I go to the next one. I
Mhm.
was really proud about Artist Alley of the Damned. I thought it was I thought it was some of the funniest writing I've done this year, and it's done okay. And but compared to some of my other stories, at least on Reddit, that have gotten millions and millions of views, uh this didn't get that. It did okay. I
It just came
probably
out.
shouldn't. Well, but see, that's the thing. These things die like that.
Yeah, dude.
Reddit, you got 24 hours. Unless all of a sudden kind of somebody reshares something or picks back up, you pretty much got 24 hours.
Well, we got to
I
publish that story
probably
somewhere else for exposure. Yeah, imagine the exposure you'll get if we can get you in some kind of anthology out there. Come on, dude.
yeah, I know. Well, and here's the thing. Bigger scheme of things, I probably shouldn't have released that story the day after July 4th. A lot of people were on holiday and
Do it again.
vacation and stuff like
Do it again.
that. And
Who cares?
yeah,
Do it again.
well, we'll see.
Ah,
But
come on,
here's the
kid. Come
thing.
on.
It's it still did okay. I still got orders after I published it and stuff like that. Um, but what I'm saying is, not everything's going to be a win when you're putting all that work in. I'm not saying, hey, you start working hard and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's still slow. It's still steady. But it's that hard work that is where I'm seeing the growth in my audience. The growth in my Etsy store and stuff like that. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet, but I'm at least I can go, hey, something happens every week. And it wasn't this is, like I said, it wasn't a magic hashtag or anything. It was me putting something out there on a consistent basis and working at the quality of that work. And here's the thing, I know there are stories that didn't do well, that I can look at and go, yeah, it wasn't quite there. I was trying to shit something out. And anyway, all of this to go back to exposure. If you're going to work for exposure, work for yourself for exposure. I work for exposure every week, but it's me
That's right.
doing the exposure.
That's
I
right.
am in charge of the exposure.
Expose yourself out
whoa,
there.
whoa, 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 whoa,
On the streets, you got to expose. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that
oh,
so bad.
oh, that got me.
We are about to wrap this up. Yeah, 100% Ryan. And amazingly, we did not parallel this with music, which would be the most instinctive like parallel. Uh,
Oh,
because even that still kind of is prevalent, for bands who have been around for a long time, and there's still that level of like, yeah, your booking's tenuous, or your payouts tenuous on just kind of how things go for the night. Um, when I think, and I get that, but I think any band that signs up to play any gig is entitled to fair compensation, regardless of whatever. But that's a different topic. But it's kind of similar. Artistic
well,
art,
actually, here.
you know,
So yeah, well, here, let me.
real quick.
I'll give an example of this. Uh, so my band signed up for a show that was pretty much an exposure show. It was, they wanted us selling tickets and stuff like that, which I would, yeah, I know. And we went and we met with these guys to kind of get a feel. And I'll be 100% honest, we did it because it was at the neighborhood theater and I wanted to play on that stage. And that was it. It was a big stage, but they were feeding us with all this kind of bullshit. Oh, there's going to be this guy here and he's looking for a song for this movie. And you're going to get in front of that guy. Like that was, yeah, no. And fun fact though, we ended up meeting, I met Tiff at that show, who is
Oh, cool.
Levi's lead singer for No Anger Control. Um, she was in another band at that time. They played right after us. The only people we truly connected with at that show was her band and her. They like we immediately were. She was like, "I love what you guys are doing." When they went on, I was like, "I love what you guys were doing." We were kind of it. Now I sold uh, uh quite a bit of tickets at that show. Okay. They had us open up the show, which, hey, just from a business standpoint, I'm going to tell you right now, that's fucking stupid. We sold at least 40 some tickets. We had a good crowd when we played, and they had us play first. And guess what all those people did after we got done playing? They left. They didn't buy any beer, they didn't buy any merch, nothing. That guy who was picking a song, he did pick a song. He picked it from the most bleh, boring band in the world. He didn't give a shit about us. So this thing that we played essentially for exposure for something we brought more money to than I was asking around. I was asking the other bands like how many tickets you sell. They were like, I don't know, like two or three. And they had us play first. So we got nothing from doing that show. Zero.
Yep.
And other than getting to meet Tiff and, in this weird way, connecting our worlds together and stuff like that. But yeah, no, don't do it, guys. It's not going
Absolutely.
to work out.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. But what should they do, Ryan?
They should just go do the damn thing.